The girl says there's a saying, "Work is a graveyard for life," although she believes otherwise. The protagonist, Makoto Tanaka, explains that the very act of looking for a job is already a grave for life. The man states that there are 5 A-rank trolls and 4 basilisks, as well as 3 S-rank tyrant dragons. Makoto Tanaka says that all these creatures are dangerous and that he'll miss the last train again today. He explains that even if he hurries, it will be past midnight, and wonders when was the last time he was even home. Makoto Tanaka says he's really sleepy and sighs. 10 years ago, mysterious structures appeared, which people called dungeons, and unknown creatures emerged from them. There are also numerous weapons and equipment there, crafted from a material unknown to humans. He explains that the people who began to examine these items were called seekers. Makoto Tanaka explains that he also went there in search of treasure. First, it's reported that with the creation of the dungeons, people with special abilities began to appear, tens, even hundreds of times stronger than ordinary people. Then he says that, whether he was lucky or unlucky, he too has developed abilities. Makoto notes that there are such monsters there too. The guy says it all looks interesting and he'd like to go into a dungeon at least once. 2. The girl explains it's dangerous and shouldn't be attempted. Besides, he's not awakened and will die quickly. The man says he knows this. Makoto Tanaka explains that the doors open, and if you think about it, he's been close to death in the dungeon more than once. He reports that they even created a special website for people to share their exploits, and in a short period of time they became very popular. He explains that, naturally, he never filmed anything on it, since he practically lives at work. Makoto Tanaka says he doesn't understand how streamers make money. He says he has no idea. He reports that at times like these he begins to feel too old. The woman says passage is permitted and wishes good luck in battle. Makoto Tanaka says it's time to get back to work. This is the Shibuya dungeon, the stone demon. He presses a button on the device in his hand, after which the device begins to make a sound and rises into the air. A small drone for filming. It is designed to automatically record videos and send them to the guild. Makoto Tanaka explains that he also has an image transmission protocol and uses it only to transmit information about the guild's work, then selects the guild's video transmission protocol. Makoto Tanaka suddenly collapses, and the man asks if he's okay, to which Makoto Tanaka replies yes. He says he's just a little nervous. The man says he's a walking corpse. Makoto Tanaka reports that he only slept a couple of hours today, and he hasn't been home for about 2 weeks. He explains that he can't remember the last time he slept properly and wonders why he even does it. He reports that the guild he works for is a government contractor, and that's where its advantages end. Makoto Tanaka reports that even the government doesn't want to work on these dungeons, and no one is monitoring it, so their guild is full of hard work. He explains that he's so overwhelmed that he has no time to consider quitting, despite knowing that at this rate he'll soon die. He says that everything is already blurring before his eyes, and therefore he needs to finish everything here as soon as possible. Makoto Tanaka announces that his destination today is the largest dungeon in Tokyo, the Shibuya dungeon, and that he will spend another day there. Then Makoto Tanaka gets to work. Then he didn't yet know that because of today's trip to the dungeons. The audience asks who it is, why he went there. He's suicidal and he can't cope. Makoto thinks to himself that his life will change dramatically. Viewers write that the channel is popular and belongs to a guild, and ask if this man is their employee. They say that this channel should never have broadcast. One viewer reports seeing it somewhere before and asks if anyone can point it out, perhaps even something they've seen on the news. Makoto Tanaka explains that the dungeon is divided into upper, middle, and lower levels. He reports that this is the very bottom of the entire dungeon and that he has arrived. He explains that under normal circumstances he would descend slowly and carefully, but now he doesn't have time. He says that he will have to plunge headlong into the abyss and that he will have to work again. Makoto Tanaka says he really wants to drop everything and go home and eat a hot, home-cooked meal. Makoto Tanaka remains silent. The robot informs him that this will be filmed, and the guild president won't be watching anyway, so no one will notice. He says he still hasn't gotten a raise and hates his dangerous job. He then hopes he'll get at least 2 hours of sleep today. Makoto Tanaka reports that the number of viewers has grown steadily, from just 2 people at the start to around 10,000 now. He explains that this is sure to be popular and that the video will definitely stir things up at the top. He says all he gets from them is insults and threats, so he ignores them because everyone will be making fun of him tomorrow anyway. He says his phone only has contacts for the guild and a couple of friends, no social media, and his friends rarely text, meaning the calls and messages are from the company. Makoto Tanaka says it's time to go deeper. The Shibuya dungeon consists of an upper, middle, lower, and deep level, with a deep pit in the center. Makoto Tanaka says you can immediately drop to a deep level. He says it's too dangerous, so few seekers would dare, adding that if only they hadn't sent him that damn norm. The viewers are screaming that he's fallen and that he's going to die, and asking what he's doing. Is this a suicidal stream? Makoto Tanaka says he's been getting a lot of notifications again, but doesn't think they're anything important. He explains he'll just ignore them. Then Makoto Tanaka says he's forgotten about the drone, which is still tracking him. He says that he is not yet used to being filmed, and that it is not really necessary anyway. Makoto Tanaka doubts the company will even look at the report and asks how long today's task will take, as he's too nervous. He mentions streaming, something he should try someday, and wonders if he'll get any feedback from it. He says it's time to land. Makoto Tanaka jumps down on the dragon. The dragon lets out a loud scream, and Makoto Tanaka strikes it in the head. Viewers write that it was a wyvern, a very dangerous creature that can harm both beginners and experienced players. Another explains that a bite from such a wyvern can be fatal. A third reports that it's been a while since he's seen monsters eat people. Makoto says it was a red wyvern. It probably decided I was food and flew here. Makoto Tanaka screams as a massive dragon rises into the air. Makoto Tanaka jumps with his weapon in hand, preparing to attack the dragon. He says Hoba and strikes the dragon, tearing its body apart. Makoto Tanaka falls down, landing on the ground among large rocks. He says he can't afford to lose because it would mean the end for him. He explains that he must win at any cost to protect those he cares about. Makoto Tanaka announces it's time to work. Meanwhile, viewers are commenting in amazement that the red wyvern was simply cut in half. They think maybe his camera's frame rate is too low and they simply didn't notice. The guy says, "Look at him, he fell from such a height, and all he does is stretch his legs." Another viewer says the stream already has 50,000 people, explaining that it's because the video was shared across social media, as if he were some kind of great streamer. Makoto Tanaka asks why his phone is ringing off the hook and how long it will keep ringing. He reports that this is the deepest part of the dungeon. He explains that this is a dangerous place inhabited by powerful monsters. The monster says they are called trolls and minotaurs. Basilisks and death knights are dangerous creatures. Makoto Tanaka says that the tyrant dragon is a very strong opponent that he would not like to fight, but his superiors have given him a quota, so he will have to. He says it's time to work and at the same time takes his sword out of its sheath. Makoto Tanaka runs toward a group of enormous creatures that emit a loud roar. These creatures then simultaneously attack Makoto Tanaka, punching and kicking him. He reports that the troll looks scary and physically fit. He says that when they first met, the troll almost kicked his ass. Makoto Tanaka says that GRA is a very durable opponent and has no special abilities, and if you cut off its head, it will be unable to move. He explains that of all the monsters in the dungeon's depths, it is the weakest. Viewers are chatting about how even an A-rank adventurer can handle monsters and adventurers with their gear, as weapons decide the outcome of a fight, no matter the opponent's strength. A man says he doesn't believe in montages and is surprised someone killed 3 trolls with 1 blow. Another man asks, "Is this a montage? He killed 3 trolls with 1 blow." Makoto Tanaka says his phone is blowing up with notifications today, distracting him from work. He says this as the phone vibrates in the background. In another shot, he expresses irritation. He stands with a weapon in front of a huge monster. He notices something in the monster's eye. The viewers report that ogres are supposed to live on the lower levels, and explain that these creatures are rare in the marketplace. Few can fight them. He says it's a basilisk and that he's never seen one before, adding that it looks terrifying and definitely couldn't become a seeker. Look people, there are already a lot of viewers here. Makoto Tanaka announces that his breath turns all living things to stone, and if he gets caught, he'll become a corpse. At that moment, a loud scream is heard. He explains that if he had friends who could cure this status, or at least healing items, the situation would be different, but he's lonely and can't make friends. He explains that he therefore needs to kill the enemy when he attacks. Makoto Tanaka says it's now. The creature screams. He makes a fighting noise. Makoto Tanaka explains that few people know this, but his most vital part is located under his belly. However, if you hit him wrong, his petrification will spread throughout the area. Makoto Tanaka explains that this isn't the first time he's fought him like this. He says there's something wrong with his phone today, and as soon as he came in here, it keeps vibrating, distracting him because he's risking his life. The phone vibrates continuously. Makoto Tanaka stands with his fists clenched against the backdrop of exploding Earth. He announces that he is facing an S-rank monster, a tyrant dragon. It is reported to be a tyrant dragon. Its stats are several dozen times greater than those of a troll. It is reported that its flames can melt metals and is a very powerful opponent. Viewers say it's the end of the story. The stream will end soon. He reports sad news. The mysterious swordsman has died. Another viewer warns everyone to run as fast as they can from the dragon. One guy explains that it's a tyrant dragon. His S-rank group can't always win, and here's an ordinary cleric. He looks at a huge dragon that spews fire and smoke as it rises on its hind legs. Makoto Tanaka reports that the enemy's breath will leave no trace on him, and it's unlikely he'll be able to dodge it. He explains that he doesn't need that outcome, as he still wants to live. A group of people are shouting that he's gonna die, what is he even doing, and ordering him to run. The man notices that he's so focused and asks if he's gonna fight. He says he's betting his mother's soul that he'll defeat him. The dragon releases a powerful fireball. The dragon directs the fiery stream forward, causing an explosion and destruction. Makoto Tanaka says that if he can't win, he will die. He then declares that this is his last chance. After this, Makoto Tanaka delivers a powerful punch, causing an explosive wave. He delivers a powerful blow, causing a devastating explosion. The dragon, which sharply turns its head and looks forward. Makoto Tanaka explains that the dragon isn't just a monster, but an ancient creature capable of destroying entire cities. He explains that to defeat it, one must use the special weapon it wields. He says he's tired. The voices around him are surprised and incredulous that a sword can do such a thing these days, horrified that he cut a dragon in half with one blow, asking if it's a montage, marveling at the clerk's strength, and asking if a sword master has appeared in our time. Makoto Tanaka says that if he can't win, he will die. He explains that he can't afford to die because he has a family. It is reported that he was their leader, and after his death, the other monsters lost their will to fight. He says that even if he kills them, the guild will still take the materials, and that he has already fulfilled his quota, so there is no point in fighting further. The monster and the knights run away. He says he finished earlier than he expected today and needs to hurry to get to the grocery store and buy something. Makoto Tanaka says he'll probably check his phone first, even though he doesn't want to see anything. The phone screen shows the time 11:23 p.m. The date is Tuesday, the 17th, and indicates there are 9,999 unread notifications. The phone makes a notification sound, and the screen displays the time and the number of unread notifications, 9999. He says he has 9,999 notifications, and he thought the phone was just running out of battery. He's surprised by the number of notifications. Makoto Tanaka says he doesn't understand where these comments are coming from. He explains that he receives notifications from DTube about new comments on his posts. He screams, then says that his video was uploaded to the wrong place and all the comments were about him. The guy doesn't understand how this happened or what's going on. Makoto Tanaka says he was setting up the broadcast for the company, not for all services, and asks him to wait. The man says he missed the settings. Makoto Tanaka says his entire performance was broadcast nationwide. He explains that he's not that popular, so not many people saw the stream. The man says he's counting 100, 1,000, 10,000, 1 million. The man looks puzzled and says he's talking about 100 million people. Makoto Tanaka says he used a company account that had no more than 2,000 people, and asks where the 100 million people came from. He says he's finished because even famous streamers and TV hosts don't have anywhere near a million, and he has a whopping 100 million. He reads comments from viewers who congratulate him on his first stream, say it was awesome, remark that his stream has finally been noticed, and offer to join their guild. Makoto Tanaka says the situation won't get better unless he does something now. Makoto says he'll have to write a lot of written apologies now. The day after the broadcast, the man is lying in bed. Makoto Tanaka says everyone's talking about him. His phone screen displays news headlines about who that office worker is and where he came from, about a workaholic swordsman who destroyed a tyrant dragon with a single blow, and about the world's first broadcast to 100 million people. He asks what's in other media. The article reports that this man is too powerful and wonders why no one knew about him before. Usajin explains that the Black Dog Guild hid him, acknowledging the importance of the government's work but expressing doubts. Makoto Tanaka says he can't believe this happened and explains that he will now have to recollect all the data. He says he's probably the only one crazy enough to dive deep into the depths alone and asks if it's really worth talking about. He explains that he doesn't understand anything because he spends a lot of time at work and needs the opinions of powerful people online. Makoto Tanaka reports that he began descending immediately after suspicions arose in the world. He thought he was strong enough, but he didn't think that everything would turn out exactly like this. He says that if you think about it, because of his ordinary appearance of an ordinary employee in suit, he looks like an ordinary employee, and the bags under his eyes do not give him away as a seeker at all. Makoto Tanaka says the hero doesn't look like a searcher at all, but rather like a clerk, and that's precisely why people created the news. The phone starts ringing. He screams that he disconnected from DTube and that notifications shouldn't be coming in, then suddenly crashes into the wall and falls to the floor. Makoto Tanaka tells him what to do now. He explains that Adachi is one of his few friends, with whom he used to play often, but lately they haven't seen each other at all, as he was too busy and even forgot about his existence. He says the call is related to yesterday's events, but he doesn't want to talk about it and admits he has no one to consult with except the caller. He says hello. The man greets him, says he saw everything and nearly died laughing, and asks how. He reports that he is switching off. Makoto Tanaka says he agrees and asks for a minute. He asks if he wants to be disconnected. The man explains that he won't make any more jokes and asks not to be disconnected. The man apologizes and promises not to bully him anymore, asking him not to pass out, and Makoto Tanaka says he's unbearable. He thanks her and tells her that Adachi hasn't changed, and he's glad he's doing well. He explains that, frankly, he needs Adachi's advice now, so it's not beneficial for him to disconnect. He explains that Adachi is a good conversationalist and has known many people for a long time. Adachi says he watched the video and notes that the other guy is as strong as ever and asks if he's gotten even stronger. He says enough of the flattery and asks what he should do. He explains that you first need to tell him what the other person wants to understand. The man says he wants to delete all the popular videos first. He asks what he wants. Adachi laughs and says that's impossible. Adachi reports that the number of videos from his stream is not in the hundreds, but in the thousands, and explains that they have already spread abroad. He says there's a real samurai in Japan, something like that, and he checked. It's already been translated into 5 languages. He explains that during the broadcast there were comments, apparently from foreign users, and says this isn't the outcome he wanted, but he'll have to live with it. The man says the video's deletion is cancelled and asks for advice on how to minimize the situation, but Adachi replies that he doesn't understand what he's saying. He says he just became famous and asks why the other guy is trying to give it up, since such a chance won't come again. Mako replies that he's an ordinary office worker, not a blogger or streamer, and even if he becomes famous, it won't bring him anything good. His boss will only make snide remarks. A man says he has a deeply ingrained office worker mentality and asks Makoto Tanaka if he understands it. He says he knows he needs to quit this company, so he asks what. Adachi says he saw in the video that the man he was interviewing had severe bags under his eyes and asks if the court is using him as a forced laborer. The man says he won't deny it. He says that this is the president of the guild he works for and calls him judge. Makoto Tanaka explains that he, Adachi, and Suda were in the same class and often played together in elementary and middle school. They are so-called childhood friends. Makoto Tanaka explains that he owes Suda a favor and can't suddenly quit. He explains that this is because Suda lent him money when his parents were ill. He says he's already paid back the money and paid off his debt, so it's time to live for himself. He says he's living for himself. He explains that he's been so busy that he didn't even think about such things. Makoto Tanaka says he can live for himself. The man says that if he quits, he won't find work anywhere else, and confirms that's what his boss said. The man explains that his boss has become a hardened, evil boss and advises Makoto Tanaka not to take such words to heart. He says there's also the option of becoming a freelancer without belonging to any company. He explains that you won't earn much as a freelancer, as he doesn't have a currency exchange license. He explains that the items you get in the dungeon can't be exchanged directly. Makoto Tanaka says it's usually owned by companies, not individuals. He explains that it's a complex system, but without it, the economy would easily collapse, and explains why the items found in dungeons are so valuable and expensive. It is reported that not only Japan, but also most other countries use similar systems. Makoto Tanaka says he's not suggesting becoming a freelancer, but rather a dungeon streamer. Makoto Tanaka confirms this with a yes. The girl explains that a dungeon streamer is someone who broadcasts their dungeon crawls. The man explains that it's indeed possible to make money this way, even without a currency exchange license. Makoto Tanaka says that famous streamers seem to be making good money, but he's unsure if he can handle it, and says he won't push anyone else to go out of their way. He explains that if Makoto decides to do it, he'll support him with all his might. Adachi is reported to work for a company that supports adventurers, and he should be well-versed in dungeon streaming, but he has been a reliable and cheerful guy since childhood. He says that if you ask Adachi, he will definitely help, and adds that this is encouraging. Makoto Tanaka says yes. He says he can't imagine quitting his job. He explains that when he starts thinking about it, doubts overwhelm him, and the word unemployed is too much for someone his age. Another man says he doesn't want to say it, but he admired Makoto Tanaka. Makoto Tanaka says he once dreamed of becoming a dungeon crawler, too. He explains that he thought he'd be fighting in dungeons, but after seeing his interlocutor fight, he decided that since he was such a tough guy, he didn't need to go into dungeons. The interlocutor is surprised, and he tells Adachi that he took a job supporting seekers so that he could one day support one specific person. Adachi asks who that is and if he knows him. He explains that Adachi has been slow-witted since childhood. Makoto Tanaka says that if he's struggling with his current job, he should quit immediately and offers to hire him to serve tea at his company, explaining that he can defeat even a tyrant dragon and shouldn't lose in a court case. Makoto Tanaka says that since the offer seems tempting to him, he says thank you and says he'll be in touch again, then leaves through the door. Makoto Tanaka looks at his watch, which shows 11:58 a.m. Then he gets up from his chair and starts walking. He says that he is not going to give up and will fight until the end. Makoto Tanaka says he's not giving up. Makoto Tanaka explains he'll fight to the end, no matter the difficulties. A man in a suit tells him his name. A man in a vest and tie asks him if he's ready. A man with long bangs stands nearby. Makoto Tanaka announces his resignation. The man in the center explains that if he fights a top-tier monster, it will be broadcast nationwide. The man on the left and right stand silently behind him. The man screams, asking if he understands what he has done. He reports that just the sound of the man's voice makes his stomach ache and that it seems his spirit is weaker than he thought. He explains that thanks to his conversation with A. Makoto Tanaka says that if it weren't for him, he probably would have given up. The man says that because of his broadcast, the company's reputation has plummeted and asks how he plans to answer for it. He says that the rest of the staff will come soon and then they will deal with him. The man says, so be prepared. And Makoto Tanaka says it's business as usual and explains that his management skills aren't worth a damn. He reports that this has left him completely depressed, both physically and mentally. The man explains that he has an incredible talent for managing a black company, and that it's not a shame. Makoto Tanaka says he's obligated, of course, but warns that if the others don't show up on time, he'll cut their pay. The man replies, okay. He says he wants to live for himself and that he needs to be afraid to do so. The blonde man explains that arriving late to the boss is not tolerated in the world, and says he's speaking for their own good, so he needs to remember that well. The other man replies, yes. The man says he always thinks about their well-being, but that's a lie. He clearly just enjoys the lectures, adding that they still need a lot of teaching. Makoto Tanaka reports that he definitely. The man says he likes to mock those who can't fight back, and that it's not easy for the boss. He says it's good that he was able to wake up, but in front of the man, his stomach starts to hurt again, and he asks if he can talk back to him properly. He's surprised. Makoto Tanaka coughs, and the man asks with a questioning expression what's wrong. Makoto Tanaka reports that he has a new message and wonders why he needed it at this particular moment. He says that if he is still afraid of the trial, then in that case just think that he has beaten his opponent in the blink of an eye, then there will be no fear. Makoto Tanaka says that's it. The man apologizes. Makoto Tanaka says he doesn't think he'll be forgiven because he's feeling unwell. He says he doesn't think so and says that Suda used to be a seeker and is stronger than a normal person. The man says he hasn't been down into the dungeon in a while and is much stronger than the person in question, and that the judge's movements are full of flaws. The man says that's all good then. Makoto Tanaka explains that it wouldn't take a second to kill him. The man asks what's wrong. Makoto T. The man says he used to be afraid of being forced to quit his job, but now he sees that a dragon tyrant would be even scarier. He asks what he's tired of. He says he's not afraid of anything anymore, not even quitting, and that he can handle it. The man wonders what he's. A guy from the group apologizes for being late. The man yells, asking if they saw the time, and demands forgiveness. The man explains that latecomers will have their pay cut later, and now turns to Makoto Tanaka, asking if he's ready. The man demands that he tell what he did and that the other employees understand. He says this. Makoto Tanaka says he first forces an employee to explain himself to make them feel guilty, then interrupts them, silences them, and takes control of the conversation. He says this is his usual approach. He speaks faster and explains that when it comes to this, the employee already backs down and can't say anything. He's a truly shameless guy. He says that if this were the case before, he would also make the same face as everyone else and starts talking. Makoto Tanaka explains that he accidentally set up the broadcast incorrectly and allowed information about the work to leak out. He says it is his fault and regrets it. The man says that what he did was terribly wrong. He explains that in his mind he can probably already see a way to break his spirit. The man says that things could have gone exactly this way in the past and asks how Makoto Tanaka plans to compensate. Makoto Tanaka says that today he refuses to compensate. He says that the Black Dog Guild is getting a bad rap online right now, but it's entirely his responsibility and he has nothing to do with it. The man asks what exactly he said. The man says that the interlocutor has nothing to do with it and asks who he thinks he is. Makoto Tanaka shouts, demanding to be told again. The two men watch in shock. Makoto Tanaka explains that the guild is black in every sense of the word, and if something they didn't do were to spread, it would be his fault. He says that only what they do has been spread, and that the interlocutor brought them to this situation. He also says that their guild is a black company, and this can't happen. The man says he pays minimum wage and even gives them a day off once a month, and asks who ends up hiring such worthless people like them who no one else will hire. The man with horns shouts that it's him. Makoto Tanaka reports that, upon hearing these, he says what he thinks and no one notices. The man replies that it doesn't matter because he also does government work, in other words, he is the government. He says that there's nothing that can be done about it. The man exclaims, "Oh, you!" The voice says that the guild is already rotten through and completely black. Makoto Tanaka says the other employees are also in shock and assumes they'll quit soon. 2. Makoto Tanaka says he's already extracted enough information from someone and it's time to lay it all on the table, as he doesn't want to listen to that annoying voice anymore. The man explains that he feels sorry for Suda. He says that they've been together for so long. The man screams, asking what this means. He presses a button on the phone. The man looks furiously at him, who is calmly standing in front of him. Makoto Tanaka says he's completely freaked out. He asks what this means. The text says the conversation is getting heated. This is the dark side of Japan, and there hasn't been such a wild exposé party in a long time. Makoto Tanaka explains that a quick firing occurred live on air. Comments are heard. He says modern drones are high-tech and even have a stealth mode. The man reports a beeping sound. The man reports that this allowed him to broadcast what was happening unnoticed, and he himself says that he cannot believe how this is possible. Makoto Tanaka reports that the Black Dog Guild's DTube channel has seen a surge in subscribers thanks to an accidental leak, and viewers have likely flocked to the channel immediately. He also says it's time to pay the bills. Meanwhile, viewers comment on it being a morning show and ask questions. He says social media is exploding right now, and quite a lot of viewers have come to watch, as so many eyes have seen the court's actions. He says the court can't escape and asks if it will, as usual, intimidate and silence everyone, although he doubts even the court will be able to silence everyone. The man says he's OU and makes sobbing sounds. Makoto Tanaka explains that he usually uses fear to subjugate people, and if it comes to that, he has no trump cards left. He says he can't have a plan to get out of this situation, and he's smart enough to understand that, but he's not smart enough to think ahead. The man yells at Tanaka, asking what he's up to and how dare he do this, and accuses him of wanting revenge for. Makoto Tanaka says that if he tells Salgu that this didn't happen, then because of him he wasted a lot of precious time, but that's in the past. He says what's important is what happens next. The man asks what happens next. He explains that from now on he'll live for himself. First he needs to quit his job, and what happens after that, he hasn't decided yet, but he'll either live as a freelancer or find another job. The man laughs and the man yells that Makoto Tanaka is a freelancer and will find another job, calling him a good-for-nothing, useless piece of trash, and also saying that as long as he keeps Makoto Tanaka on a leash, he won't be able to work anywhere else. Makoto Tanaka says that's nonsense. The man shouts that this applies to everyone present as well, and makes a pained sound. He says he understands the other man's point of view and can't believe he worked under him for so long. Makoto Tanaka says then why doesn't he ask if he can get a job somewhere else, and then yells that he said. He says that if he quits this company, he wonders if he will find a job. A man asks to join the Grey Wolves Guild. A man asks to join the Golden Lions with double the pay if others offer. A man says the Silver Cats would be happy to have them. A man explains the Obsidian Bears. Makoto Tanaka says that among them there are famous guilds that are very difficult to get into, and confirms this. He says he never would have thought anyone needed him, and that there are still good people in the world, listing offers from others, working with Tommy, becoming a freelancer, joining the Writers Guild. He says he can't and is about to cry. Makoto Tanaka says that here is the answer, here, and that the spell is no longer working. No matter what the man says, he doesn't care. The man screams, "Oh, you!" He says that the one who brought the poor student into his father's company and who paid for his parents' treatment did everything for him, and he dares to do this to his benefactor. Makoto Tanaka reports that he has already repaid the debt. The man says that Makoto Tanaka betrayed him. Makoto Tanaka honestly explains that he thought they would succeed together. He looks at the man, who turns his back to him and opens a desk drawer. 3 men watch what is happening. The guy tells Makoto Tanaka to shut up and calls him a fucking bastard. Makoto Tanaka watches silently. The guy, with a manic grin, says he's talking to Tanaka. He says he's seriously surprised. 3 men report that they're also amazed. 3 men are in shock. Makoto Tanaka stands there with a serious expression. Another man, with a wild expression and a sword in his hand, calls someone an ungrateful bastard. He says that the knife is a cursed weapon used in the dungeons. He explains that outside the dungeon, the very presence of the knife violates the law governing the labyrinths. The man screams for them to die. Makoto Tanaka screams his name. Several boys in school uniforms react in horror. A man with a distorted, angry face stares ahead. Makoto Tanaka stares ahead silently. He says he's slow. A man with a knife rushes at him. The man reports that his movements are much more sophisticated than those of the monsters from Fukaka. He explains that he used to be stronger, but has now completely deteriorated. The man screams that his hand is injured and clutches it in pain, stating that it is all over, apparently. Makoto Tanaka announces that now another man will also know what pain is. The other man screams in pain. He grabs another man by the lapels, and the other man says that he didn't expect that. Makoto Tanaka clenches his fist. Makoto Tanaka destroys the table and throws the man out from behind it. He says it's impossible and tells her it can't be true. He explains it can't be true and tells her it's impossible. The man screams and falls through the glass, breaking it. Makoto Tanaka reports feeling better. He explains that he held back so the other person wouldn't die, and hopes this will teach him something. He says he won't forgive and asks how he dared. He explains that even a rotten but former seeker is still strong, and his spirit has not yet been broken. The man says his pride won't allow him to admit defeat and accuses him of disgrace. Makoto Tanaka tells him that if he hits him again, he could die. The man points out that this is a problem. The man yells, demanding that they stop standing there. A guy orders the death of a criminal who raised his hand against him. He calls the employees completely useless and yells at one of them. The man demands that the criminal be stopped or he will cut his salary. And he yells at them. He says that if he's not mistaken, a promising young employee hired last year reveals that Makoto Tanaka will be struggling without a salary now and that he can make sure Makoto can no longer work in this industry, and also reveals that they have never gone underground together, so his abilities are a mystery to him. He asks if he wants this. The man replies that no, he doesn't want it. The man leaves and he stands at the door. Makoto Tanaka says he'll just restrain the other man without causing pain. The other man says, "Okay, go ahead." The man thanks him. He tries to grab the leg and put it in a hold, but the man says that this is actually a good way to immobilize the opponent, but the movements are too straightforward. He reports that he is caught. Makoto Tanaka says that, as he thought, they are slow. He says he can't believe he fell. Makoto Tanaka screams in pain. The man watches him silently. Makoto Tanaka falls face down on the table, a hot marble landing on his head as the man places it on top. He says he can't go on like this anymore and that he's tired. He then supports the girl, putting his arm around her shoulders and helping her lean against the wall. The man says that a salary cut alone won't do the trick and calls them useless. Makoto Tanaka tells Souza to surrender, as everything is being broadcast, and warns him that it's over for both him and the guild. Souza yells at him to shut up, claiming that the guild grew to this size thanks to him, and orders Goda to capture Makoto. He is silent. He stands with clenched fists. Makoto Tanaka says the difference from that young employee of the year. He says that even though Goda is his younger colleague, they have explored dungeons together many times, so he knows Goda's abilities. He explains that Goda is an experienced A-rank adventurer, and the court relies on him. He reports that, unlike last time, Makoto Tanaka says we need to figure out how to deal with him. The man says that he is finally leaving and congratulates him, explaining that he has been thinking about this for a long time, because he is too big for such a guild and he should fight in a larger arena. He answers with a question. Makoto Tanaka says thank you. The man explains that when they were exploring dungeons together, Makoto Tanaka was silent, and he thought he disliked him, but now he understands that's not true. The man exclaims, turning to Makoto Tanaka. He says another man is wagging his tail at this scum. The man with short dark hair clenches his teeth. The other man reacts in shock to what was said. The man says that Tanaka-san taught him the basics of the Seeker and is his important mentor, so he cannot carry out the president's order. The man tells Tanaka that he will detain the president and orders him to leave. Makoto Tanaka explains that even if he attacks seriously, it will only lead to his defeat, and asks if the president understands this. The man replies that he doesn't think so and is sure they could put up a good fight. Makoto Tanaka, surprised, He says thank you and helped out, patting the man on the shoulder. The man silently looks away. The man makes sounds of pain and suffering. Makoto Tanaka announces that he will finally say goodbye to this guild and reaches for the door handle. He reports that the door was locked from the inside and explains that it is now open. Two men announce they are from the Dungeon Association's audit department. Makoto Tanaka tells everyone to remain seated. A woman with long hair explains they've come to respond to a call. He says it's the audit department and laughs. Makoto Tanaka says he sees the wind blowing in the opposite direction. The man shouts for officials to apprehend the criminal, explaining that the man had raised his hand against him. The man explains that the Dungeon Association's audit department is an internal department of the Ministry of Monster Control, meaning it's a government organization, and given all the hype, that's hardly surprising. The man explains that there were likely reports from viewers of the broadcast and urges them to fulfill their duties more quickly. The sound of the door opening is heard. The man's hands are clutching the handle. The guard tells him not to resist, holding the man by the shoulders. The man, with a bloody nose, is surprised. The man shouts to stop and wait, explaining that the criminal is there. Makoto Tanaka reports that a man named Suda Akihiro has been detained for violating the prospector labor law and the special probation law. The man says they probably saw it all themselves. The man says it's not like that and asks if he really thought everything would be okay. The man explains that it wasn't. The man says his previous mistreatment of employees hasn't gone unnoticed, and now his reign is over. The woman shouts that if they're going to arrest him, they should arrest Tanaka too, since he used force against a law-abiding citizen. Makoto Tanaka remains silent, and the woman closes her eyes and the woman says that according to a special law regarding awakened beings, it is indeed forbidden to use their powers outside the dungeons without special permission, especially against ordinary people. The man confirms this. Makoto Tanaka explains that awakened beings are those who have gained special powers after the dungeons appeared. He explains that awakening is said to occur when a substance called magical essence, found in the dungeons, enters the body. Makoto Tanaka explains that everyone's power is different. He informs them that once awakened, the power can be used outside the dungeons, and that's why the use of powers by awakened people is limited by Special Law Number 12. He says that this ungrateful man must be arrested. The man warns them not to be mistaken. The man screams with his mouth open. The woman explains that his actions fall under the category of self-defense, and if the interlocutor were not awakened, it could be considered an excess of self-defense, but in this case, both are awakened. The man says they attacked first and even used weapons, so their guilt is disproportionately greater. Makoto Tanaka explains that Suda was also a former seeker and an awakened being, so he can't be arrested under the special law for awakened beings. Makoto Tanaka says, yeah. He says that it is good that he was awakened, but the woman nevertheless reports. The woman tells Makoto Tanaka that he'll have to go to the police station too and asks if he understands. Makoto Tanaka says he'll have to go to the police station, and that's a hassle for him. The woman looks at Makoto Tanaka carefully and asks if that's really true. He says her face looks familiar and asks if it's Amazuki. Amazuki says she finally recognizes him. The man explains that they haven't seen each other in a while, which is why he didn't recognize her, and remarks on how much she's grown. Another man shouts Amazuki Kanade's name. Makoto Tanaka asks why the head of the first cleansing section is here. The man explains that in cases involving awakened intruders, the first cleansing section is required to handle such cases, as regular people would be unable to catch or detain them if they escaped. The man adds that this is understandable, but he says that he did nothing wrong, then explains that it is indeed strange that Amatsuki came for such a small fry like Suda, and adds that the other person has done enough. The woman explains that the First Purge Division is the Ministry of Monster Control's internal division, an elite section of the Monster Purge Bureau. The man explains that all of its employees are high-level awakened, who respond to monster sightings in the city and assist in the arrest of awakened criminals. Makoto Tanaka says Amatsuki is a strong, intelligent, and incredibly beautiful rising star of the Ministry of Monster Control. He says that although she is younger than him, she is already in charge of the first cleansing department, which shows her outstanding abilities. Makoto Tanaka says they used to explore dungeons together and got along quite well. The woman explains that there's no deeper meaning to her presence here, and the man explains that on the one hand she's an elite, on the other, he's an office worker. The man says it's sad how things came to be between them. The woman says she just had some free time. He asks if Amatsuki is supposed to be very busy, and if so, if she came to meet someone. The girl says she can't let Makoto Tanaka leave. Makoto Tanaka turns to the girl. The girl says she has no intention of letting him go. He says that she doesn't like him, and at the same time expresses doubt. Makoto Tanaka says the two need to be taken away to court. The man replies that he understands the order. The handcuffed man shouts that he is the guild president and demands to be released, while the other man orders them to stop. A boy yells at Makoto Tanaka, warning him that he won't get away with what he did. Makoto Tanaka tells him to remember this humiliation. The man says he will definitely take revenge and warns him not to resist, otherwise the measures will be escalated. The man explains that he pays a lot of taxes, the salary is his money, and demands to be released quickly, expressing his pain. He reports that the court held out until the end and the story of his dismissal is over. The woman says she needs to talk to Makoto. The woman explains that this is a voluntary escort and suggests they postpone it until later. Makoto Tanaka explains that he hasn't slept much in weeks and is already at his wit's end. But the woman objects. The man opens the window. The woman is surprised and notices something. He explains that if it were an unfamiliar official, he would have left, but with Amatsuki, it's possible to have a little conversation and promises to talk, passing on contact information, after which he says goodbye. The girl says she came specifically to meet Makoto Tanaka. Makoto Tanaka says he didn't hear what she said. He says it must have seemed that way. The girl reports that Amatsuki is now far away from her and, apparently, they will never explore dungeons together again like before. Makoto Tanaka says he'll be grateful to use it. The man notices Makoto Tanaka, who's standing there hugging his backpack. A guy tells Makoto Tanaka that he saw his broadcast and notes that he had a great time there. He asks him not to shout so loudly that they won't be noticed, and the guy explains that it's hard to be popular and already thinks of himself as a celebrity. Makoto Tanaka announces he's going home. The man apologizes and says he's joking. He says that the other person always says 3 words more than necessary. The other person apologizes and explains that when he's with him, he wants to talk a lot. The other person says that as an apology, he can order whatever he wants, and that it's in his honor. Makoto Tanaka reports that when he suddenly received a message, it was from Adachi, inviting him to celebrate his dismissal, which is a good thing for someone unemployed like him, and suggests they go try something. Makoto Tanaka sighs and says okay. The man asks if they're ready to order. A man says he wants a huge cheeseburger, giant fries, steak, and double rice. He then says he wants an even bigger bowl of curry and the largest pasta, along with drinks and pancakes. The man says that's all for now. He explains that the man himself said he was treating him and adds that he hasn't had a proper meal in a long time. The man is indignant that even for a restaurant this is too much and asks if the man is trying to ruin him. Makoto Tanaka says that's how it should be, that the man has. He says he forgot that his interlocutor is an active seeker, and with such activity it's not surprising that he eats a lot. The man replies that yes, indeed. Makoto Tanaka says he'll bring drinks and asks what's coming. He explains that the circles under his eyes have become less noticeable and that he looks a little healthier. Makoto Tanaka says that when he was an office worker, his face was like that of a corpse, but today when he looked in the mirror it looked. He asks Adachi if he said there was something they needed to discuss. Adachi says yes, suggests they discuss it while they wait for food, and explains that he did it in between work. He looks at a document labeled, Makoto Tanaka, Path to Popular Streamer. Makoto Tanaka reads information sheets about account management methods, broadcasting conditions, commenting, ways to attract viewers, tips from successful streamers, and the need to believe in yourself. Then Makoto Tanaka says he thinks he knows nothing about streaming. He says that this didn't happen here. The man says he'll definitely make his interlocutor a world-class streamer. Makoto Tanaka explains that he's conveying this to the other man and begins speaking, addressing Adachi. The man explains that it's an outdated model from the ones he used in the Black Dog Guild. But it's still fully functional, so it's worth using. He says he even prepared a drone. The man turns to him, who asks. Makoto Tanaka says that here. He informs me that I can't stream immediately after creating an account and explains that he created it yesterday just in case. The man advises me to start streaming tomorrow and promises to send the account ID and password later. He says Adachi. Makoto Tanaka says he can't properly thank them for what they do for him and asks if that's okay. He explains that he's not so low as to parasitize on an unemployed person and adds that he's happy. The man says that he will be watching your progress and asks you not to worry and give it your all. He says well. Makoto Tanaka says he'll be grateful to use it. The man says yeah. He says they're discussing his becoming a streamer and asks if he'd like to join another guild. As he saw someone suggest it during the stream, a man in the background says something, expressing surprise or confusion. Makoto Tanaka says he's considering freelancing and wants to test his skills, and reports that he actually enjoys the support he's received in the comments. The man says it's already so late and he says okay then. Makoto Tanaka says he needs to go to the association's administrative office to explain himself, thanks him for everything and says goodbye. The man says it's time to go too and asks to say hello to Kanade-chan. The narration reveals that he and Amatsuki have known each other for a long time, and that Amatsuki and Adachi are also close. He says he hasn't seen her on stream for a long time, but she's become a real beauty, and that she was cute before, but now she's become such a beauty. He reports that there was a real buzz in the comments. The woman says she's now called the Ice Sword Princess, and says she laughed when she saw so many comments about wanting to be defeated by her. Makoto Tanaka calls it crazy, then explains that she's truly grown into a decent person and thinks she's disappointed. The man says it looks like Amatsuki won't be able to attend the upcoming interrogation, and thinks it's for the best, as he hardly wants to see him fall into disrepair. Another man explains that if she were disappointed, she wouldn't have come specifically for that, and adds that she doesn't. The guy tells Kanade that many challenges lie ahead. Makoto Tanaka asks what he's talking about, and the guy tells him to forget about it. Makoto Tanaka says he'll read it anyway and start streaming tomorrow. He says he'll be watching while he works and wishes him luck. The man thanks him. The bottom panel depicts a cityscape with a small building and trees. Makoto Tanaka says this is Nishi Shinjuku Station and points to the Nishi Shinjuku dungeon. He says it's hot, but at least now he can go to bed and wake up whenever he wants, and he tells how happy he is. Makoto Tanaka says he'll do his best today. He reveals the name of the dungeon, Nishi Shinjuku, and explains that no matter how many times he's been there, it's still impressive. The texts report that in the Nishi Shinjuku dungeon, which appeared in a giant crack in the ground, only the middle levels have been explored so far. He explains that if people immediately start broadcasting from the deep levels, they might quickly get bored, so for now they plan to limit themselves to the middle levels. Makoto Tanaka tells the drone to sync with his smartphone and link his DTube account, then reports a social media ad. Makoto Tanaka notices the rapid progress and asks if they shouldn't be at work by now. The smartphone screen displays notifications about reposts and the launch. He says it's been 1,000 years since he's been waiting for this and asks to start a hype train, announcing that he'll subscribe 10 million times from different accounts. He remarks that his complexion seems to have improved and calls himself a holy swordsman in action, asking what battle he'll show today. Makoto Tanaka says that, if you think about it, it was thanks to them that he was able to quit his job at the company. He says he's about to cry and exclaims, "Oh, shit." He says good afternoon to everyone and announces that a former Black Dog Guild member is with them. He thanks everyone for coming to his first stream. He explains that he must give it his all if he wants to repay them. In the comments, ZR. The atmosphere at DTube is reported to be much calmer, more peaceful and more cheerful, and it is much better and easier than working in a company. Makoto Tanaka says it's also funny from a luck standpoint, then explains that he forgot to turn on the chat projection and asks viewers to wait a bit. He then tells them where to click in the chat. First, a message sounds saying that he won't need to check his smartphone messages anymore. He thanks him for waiting. Then he thanks him very much for the many messages and says that today, at best, he'd like to go down to the middle floor. Makoto Tanaka suggests going deeper next time. He explains that replying to messages is quite difficult and that he respects people who do it every day. Makoto Tanaka announces that he's already near his destination and suggests getting straight to the point. The man says he had breakfast today and thanks him. He says he would be very grateful if his broadcasts were shared on social media because he is currently unemployed. Makoto Tanaka announces that today they'll be going to a cliff dungeon in western Shinjuku, located inside a huge cliff. He explains that there are many cliffs there, and some people can't even reach the dungeon without breaking something. Makoto Tanaka explains that he says it's a queue. The man explains that he's been in this dungeon before, but this is the first time he's seen something like this and asks how this even happened. He explains that they need to think about what to do with the broadcast and asks if a rare item or monster has been discovered here. Makoto Tanaka announces that today's dungeon run is cancelled and explains that no one is immune to this. He says that the first attempt is always a flop and explains that he was so looking forward to the stream, but knew he'd intentionally hyped the stream to make money. As a result, Makoto Tanaka. He says things are bad and something needs to be done, and that if this continues, his entire career will be ruined. He reads messages that say he deliberately hyped the stream to make money, that he'll have to unsubscribe, that someone was expecting something new, that everything. Makoto Tanaka says he's studied all the materials Adachi gave him, but he wasn't prepared for this. He says the situation needs to be addressed and that it seems something has happened, so he needs to ask other people. Makoto Tanaka explains that he's only recently started interacting with strangers, but usually, he says swallow. Makoto Tanaka asks if he can ask a question and immediately confirms that he can. The man explains that Makoto Tanaka is a workaholic swordsman. The guy says he's even cooler in real life, the girl says he's serious, he says he's the one, and the other guy looks confused. Makoto Tanaka says everyone is staring at him and his belly. Several adventurers are discussing his invitation to the guild, as he's already so popular and has a lot of fans among the other adventurers. One of them explains that it's perfectly normal, considering the battle they witnessed, and it's not surprising. He says that the Western Rock is an abbreviated name for the dungeon, and that naming it in full would be rather long and tedious, and also asks why there are so many people. The man explains that he's curious about what happened and why there's such a line. The guy says he's glad they came too. Makoto Tanaka reports that the elevator to the dungeon is broken, and several groups were able to descend this morning, but it seems to have broken down somewhere around the halfway point. He explains that even the people stuck there haven't been rescued yet. Makoto Tanaka apologizes for the worry. He says there's a huge queue due to the elevator being broken, and he doesn't want to wait for it to be fixed during the stream, but going to another dungeon isn't an option either, as viewers will be disappointed. Commenters say it's okay to wait, it's boring, there's no point in waiting, and that Makoto Tanaka says they've already started the discussion, and at this rate, the replies will be flying. He recalls the tip about what to do if problems arise during a stream and explains that he definitely saved it in the gallery. Then Makoto Tanaka reads what to do if the stream doesn't work. Against the backdrop of a building with a sign that says reception, one girl tells another that there are indeed 18 people inside, while the second girl says that it is not yet possible to confirm that they are safe. Makoto Tanaka says he apologizes to the ladies. He announces that he's going to go down into the dungeon. The girl, surprised, says she watched his entire stream and calls him a workaholic and a master swordsman. He notes that even the dungeon workers know about him, which is unusual for him. Makoto Tanaka asks for permission, and the girl apologizes and says that there is a queue now. He puts his hand in the box. The girl says everything is fine and asks for permission, then says okay. Makoto Tanaka informs you that to enter a dungeon, you must apply and receive permission from the dungeon workers, and if you belong to a guild, the guilds will do this for you. Since Makoto Tanaka is a loner, he must do everything himself. Makoto Tanaka receives permission and he says he'll heed Adachi's advice and do everything the way he always did. The man says that if he jumps, he'll definitely die. The girl says she's afraid of heights and feels like she's already dead. The man asks if this is a farewell stream. Another man says that. Makoto Tanaka says HM. The man with the sword on his back turns around. The man with glasses asks what the old man wants to do. The guy in the hat says he thought he was going home. The woman says that there is clearly no direction home. Makoto Tanaka says hop, then he reports ha. He says that he doesn't understand what's going on and expresses surprise and fear, and also reports that someone is going to die and asks if it's serious. Makoto Tanaka says that maybe they shouldn't have jumped, but in their line of work you have to be able to stand on your feet. He reports that the chat seems to have come to life, which is good. Makoto Tanaka explains that this is how it is. He says that those who are afraid of heights should be careful. Then he says that this isn't the first time he's fallen, so he's used to it. He explains that he's already feeling sick, but he won't die from such a fall. He says that he took some motion sickness pills. Makoto Tanaka says they seem to like it after all, and says it was probably the right decision. He says they'll slow down soon. Makoto Tanaka says oops, while he suddenly grabs his opponent's sleeve. Then Makoto Tanaka forcefully pushes his opponent, forcing him to retreat. He jumps down the cliff, breaking the rocks around him. Makoto Tanaka delivers a powerful kick, knocking his opponent back. Meanwhile, another man holds a knife with the word Tanaka written on its sheath. He states that he is not going to give up and explains that his strength is his will and determination. Makoto Tanaka claps his hands and says everything is great. He announces the start of the dungeon exploration. He says he's dizzy and thought he was going to die, even though he was just watching. He admires it and says how cool it would be to become an awakened one. He explains that a regular awakened one certainly can't do that. Makoto Tanaka hopes to show something interesting. He says he's deeply ingrained with the corporate mentality and says there are a whole bunch of rude streamers out there these days, so it's hard to see him. Makoto Tanaka explains that he's polite. The man says he enjoys watching him too. Makoto Tanaka climbs the steps. Makoto Tanaka reveals that he has become a sacred swordsman and a streamer who accidentally broadcasts across the country how he mercilessly fights S-class monsters. He says that there are exceptions, but most dungeons go underground. There are also ruins inside, and there are also monsters with different characteristics inside. It is reported that monsters live only in dungeons, but sometimes they come out. Makoto Tanaka reports that in such a case, the Bureau usually gathers people for a raid to get rid of all the monsters, and tells them to move on. Goblins typically use knives and other simple weapons, but their intelligence and physical abilities are poor. The Research Association also assigned them a D rank, the lowest danger rank. He says there are only 5 of them, so it's not worth paying attention to. Makoto Tanaka says we need to move on. In the background, several creatures with spears are preparing to attack. He announces that he has no intention of stopping and explains that his power has no limits. He then destroys the barrier, shattering it into many pieces. Makoto Tanaka announces that they'll be moving on to the middle floor next. He explains that he doesn't think goblins are interesting to look at anyway. He says he didn't see anything at all and that he's a B-rank seeker, but he couldn't notice anything and lost confidence. He says the camera didn't even have time to film it. He's reviewing it frame by frame, but still doesn't see anything. Another voice says the camera doesn't show anything. Makoto Tanaka says that even though he killed the common goblins, the chat has somehow become lively, and wonders if even people who aren't adventurers are interested in something like this. He explains that they're common goblins and there's nothing interesting about them, and says he's glad someone enjoyed it. He says he's sure he'll like the rest more. The man says Makoto's normal battles are already abnormal, asks if he missed anything, and is surprised that Makoto can knock out everyone else with one hit. Makoto Tanaka says the chief simply ignored the fact that he cut through the goblins with one blow and warns that there are monsters behind him. Makoto Tanaka turns around sharply and prepares to attack. He says they're vile creatures. He stands in front of a tentacled creature that's moving toward him. Dungeon rats. Makoto Tanaka reports that they are as strong as goblins but faster. He says he had a hard time with their blood in the past, and then he got poisoned. Makoto Tanaka reports that viewers feel the same way. The texts nearby say that the giants and rats are smelly and disgusting. He says he has a fairly effective way to kill rats that will eliminate the unpleasant smell. A man asks if there is such a method and demands to know. Another man says it must be something complicated, and a third encourages him and tells him to get ready, it'll be right there. Rats are shown below. Makoto Tanaka states that he can't let them get close to him. Makoto Tanaka strikes 2 giant rats with his sword. Makoto Tanaka continues to attack the rats, delivering powerful blows. He delivers a powerful blow, causing an explosion and flying debris. He then announces that the unpleasant smell will no longer exist. Makoto Tanaka explains that this technique is called the flying blade and explains that the shockwave is faster than the speed of sound and is essentially a simple shockwave. He says he's curious about the comments and suggests that many people didn't know about this method, hoping it will be helpful. He asks if they understand what he did. The comments say it's unrealistic, expected, they knew it, and well, yeah. The man explains. Makoto Tanaka says it's not working and asks if maybe it's not for him after all. He says they need to move to the middle floor and informs them that he needs to continue. He explains that he's at least a little nervous. A message of support and a sticker with an approving gesture are visible on the phone screen. The sound of a saw is heard next to him. Makoto Tanaka says that he will answer questions if he has time, and invites everyone to ask if they are interested in anything. He announces that the volcano is erupting and explains that this event could have serious consequences. Makoto Tanaka explains that this isn't just a monster, but a demon capable of creating illusions and traps. He explains that they must be careful and not fall into its trap. Makoto Tanaka prepares for battle, weapon in hand and carefully observing the scene. A shadow is visible in the cave. He says this is the entrance to the lair. He reports that this is the place where the monster lives. Makoto Tanaka informs you that further on is the middle level, and the monsters there are also more dangerous, so you need to be careful. He explains that the upper and middle levels are practically identical in appearance, except that the walls and floor are slightly darker, and you need to look closely to notice. He says that you can also notice a difference in the amount of magical essence. Makoto Tanaka reports that people can sense magical essence. He explains that the deeper the dungeon, the darker it becomes. The TV screen reports on a mass poisoning by magical essence, which has left 18 people hospitalized. Makoto Tanaka explains that if you get carried away. He explains that at the middle level, the magical essence becomes much denser, so if you want to descend here, you need to be careful, otherwise you risk never waking up again. The man says this with a serious expression. Makoto Tanaka says he definitely did it. He explains he wasn't thinking about it when he fell headfirst. The others say something's wrong with him, betting he's completely resistant, and that he hasn't convinced them, and he's only making them more and more scared. He says he has resistance to changes in his magical essence, and for him, even a sudden flight to the deepest depths would be safe. But if it were an ordinary person, he would simply swell and burst, so there's no point in repeating what he says. He says that everyone is now interested in. Makoto Tanaka is silent. He says there are no monsters nearby and he'll be able to answer. He explains that the longer you stay in the dungeon, the more your body gets used to the magical essence. He says he's the same way and has been working 350 hours of overtime a month for 5 years. Makoto Tanaka says he spent so much time underground that the atmosphere there became his home. He says it's nonsense and laughs. He says he felt sick just from hearing the story, that he spent his whole life here, that they've been working hard on his streamer, and it hurts him that he's become a slave to the corporation and has been given immunity. Makoto Tanaka says that in the dungeon you can find things that, if eaten, will make you more resilient. He also says that his life was disgusting and that he never wants to go back to it. Makoto Tanaka gives an example. He explains that the glowing fly agaric is a faintly glowing mushroom found only in mid-level areas. He explains that the mushroom contains a magical essence, and eating it will slightly increase your resistance to magical essence. Makoto Tanaka says bon appetit and eats. The man with the remote control shouts, and the man at the computer looks at the screen and speaks. The man with the cup of water suddenly splashes the liquid in the woman's face. He says the mushroom is a bit hard, but the flavor is quite good. He says he ate it raw and now it seems to glow, and that the laser is charging. Others question who eats anything glowing, and remind everyone not to put anything in their mouths in the dungeon. Makoto Tanaka says that eating too much can lead to food poisoning, but it's best not to eat too much at once. He also reports that it seems the chat has truly come to life. He says that in his case, he realized he was edible when he had no time to even eat due to work, and that he simply ate whatever he could find in the dungeon. He says that at first he would constantly faint and suffer pain throughout his body, and even died. Makoto Tanaka reports that by the third year he didn't care what he ate, but had to eat everything, even raw. The man says he is amazed at how easily a person adapts to any conditions. Makoto Tanaka says that the secret of his power is simply terrifying, and even though he's strong, he won't do that because if he imitates him, he'll die, and expresses sadness. He explains that he once descended to the lower level but became ill. Then Makoto Tanaka reports that he's in very good health. He says that it's all sad and advises to buy something tasty for yourself, and then he says that this is the same. Makoto Tanaka explains that the Super Chat feature will be unlocked once the number of subscribers exceeds 10,000, but it can't be used right away. Identity verification and background checks are required first, and the more popular you become, the more you can earn from this feature. He explains that this is a feature that allows you to send a message directly to a page. He says he'll definitely film something tasty and that the Super Chat feature on his stream became available thanks to viewers. Makoto Tanaka says a big thank you to everyone. The sound is produced by a device. He announces that he can finally donate the money and that it's earmarked for retirement. He explains that he's a fan and looks forward to every stream. He says it's not that much, but he'll at least throw in a little for lunch. He also announces that Mac will contribute as well. Makoto Tanaka says he doesn't understand what's going on. He reports that his efforts have finally paid off. He says that something got into his eye and asks what it is. Makoto Tanaka says it's the first time so many people have been kind to him, and that he's glad he became a streamer. He explains that tear ducts weaken with age, and even when he cries, he's sexy, and also says they brought him to tears. Makoto Tanaka says he has to. He thanks everyone and says he'll live up to their expectations, promising to show them the most interesting things. He invites them to come to his streams. In response, they receive words of encouragement and advice not to work themselves to the point of exhaustion, not to forget the past, to be careful not to be eaten by monsters, and that he can now make money from streaming. Makoto Tanaka says they are moving forward, and if you have any questions, you can ask. He says it's a bit quiet today and he'd like the monster to show up. Makoto Tanaka says he wants to satisfy everyone, but he needs to defeat someone strong to do so. He says he hears a female voice. She reports that several groups entered the dungeon before the elevator broke down. He explains that it's serious and asks why the image has gotten worse. He also says that the dungeon must be sealed. Makoto Tanaka advises that if anyone is feeling motion sick, it's best to take medicine. Various characters say that no drone can fly that fast, it'll crash into a wall, it's flying at the speed of a supersonic train, no, even faster, and they also ask not to die and inform that. He says he needs to take the medicine because it will make him feel better right away, and says he'll take it too. He then explains that he's not the type to risk everything to save another person, but if he has the opportunity, he should at least try. He remarks that Makoto Tanaka says all the monsters seem to be enraged. He says he doesn't know how to express this feeling, but there is a tense atmosphere inside the dungeon. Makoto Tanaka says that at a time like this, there's a chance something could go wrong and that they should be careful. Makoto Tanaka says he sees it. The girl is breathing heavily. Makoto Tanaka asks if it's a loner. He reports that he has gone. The girl says to hell with it. The girl breathes heavily. Makoto Tanaka says it's dangerous to go down alone because she's still very young. He explains that whoever's talking is someone who's always gone down alone, and that this guy is special because he worked for a company. Makoto Tanaka explains that being alone is actually on the average level. A man reports that in his case he was simply forced to go down alone, while another man says he didn't do it because he liked it. The initial floors are reportedly easy, but here it's too dangerous for a solo player, as there are numerous dangers beyond monsters and traps. Without a group of people or at least one companion, progress is very difficult. The dungeon is compared to a game, but if you die, it's all over and there will be no second chance. Makoto Tanaka says she's moving well, but it's not enough. He explains that the ogre is a 2-meter-tall demon monster with high strength and intelligence, making it a very challenging opponent overall. Makoto Tanaka explains that there are 10 more of them here, working as a team against The monster tells her that she can no longer escape. Makoto Tanaka says they're ogres and wonders why they're here. He explains that the ogres should be on the deeper floors, since this is the middle level, and asks if anything unusual is going on here. He says this is an anomalous situation. He explains that these monsters shouldn't be on this floor at all, and as the name suggests, this is something that doesn't usually happen in dungeons at certain levels. A woman screams "Yuwa!" as a man with an axe jumps on her from behind. The woman reports that a monster with huge fangs and glowing eyes has appeared before her. Makoto Tanaka delivers a powerful blow with a wooden board. The girl barely manages to hold back the blow, making a sound of pain. She screams, expressing indignation and anger. The girl says the monster can't be real, and he explains that it's not a monster, but a demon that kills people. The woman says she can't believe this is happening and that it's terrible. Makoto Tanaka slams his foot down, shattering the rocks, then pushes off and leaps powerfully upward, creating a shockwave. The next shot shows him flying forward, and the final shot shows his determined gaze. The monster delivers a powerful blow, accompanied by a loud impact sound. Then the monster says "Guga." The demon makes a sound of surprise. Makoto Tanaka runs, holding the girl in his arms. The demon smirks and clenches his fist. He says "Ha." He reports that it is an ogre's horn. A defeated monster leaves behind materials, and the remaining parts dissolve into magical essence. Makoto Tanaka reports that the dropped materials can vary depending on the direction of the strike, and that such a strike could yield the most valuable materials, but now Makoto Tanaka says it's definitely possible to keep it that way. He thinks she'll forgive him, given the situation, and asks if she's okay. She replies that she is. He asks if she can stand, to which she replies that she can. The woman explains that although she's very tired, she hasn't taken much damage and can walk on her own. She then reveals that her name is Hoshino Mei and that she usually descends into the dungeons alone. The woman is surprised to see Makoto Tanaka standing before her, the same swordsman come office Plankton. He says thank God, he thought the ogres had broken her. Then he says who would have thought that a random girl would know him, and even less expected that she would call him that. Makoto Tanaka says the internet's power is astounding and asks if it can be fixed. The girl reports that her stream suddenly stopped, and social media is currently buzzing about it. The dungeon administration isn't taking any action, and they're not even rescuing adventurers. Makoto Tanaka explains. He reports that there will be no help from the guild he is in either. Makoto Tanaka asks the girl how she ended up in this situation, and she replies that she doesn't know. The girl explains that she was just streaming, and then suddenly the ogre appeared. The girl says that she could never defeat the ogre and tried to escape, but in the end she was simply driven into a corner. She thought that this was the end. He understands how scary it is. The girl says he did well. Makoto Tanaka reports that his first time there, he felt the horror and despair firsthand. The girl says that now she can rest, and he says that it is his turn next. The demon explains that he and his brother are the last of their kind and asks not to kill them, as they wish to live. The girl says they don't intend to kill demons, and Makoto Tanaka explains that they came here to talk. The ogre announces that there are 9 ogres here, which a normal girl can't handle. He says that even monsters from the deep floors are no match for him, and takes up his weapon, saying, "Okay." The ogres growl and prepare for battle. Makoto Tanaka asks if the creature is going to run away. He announces that he is ready for battle, and 3 demons with horns and clubs rush at him, making a loud roar. Makoto Tanaka says he's just watching. Our streamer is simply amazing. A man says, "Chop them into pieces." Other men shout that the ogres are so scary he'll die, expressing fear. An emotional man shouts that Tanaka should wipe them all out. He says he's not going to give up, even if it costs him his life. He explains that his strength is his will, and he's ready to fight to the end. Makoto Tanaka says that if he can't win, he won't be able to continue. A man raises his club and prepares to strike the ground, causing destruction and explosion of rocks around him. The monster says the word "Gra." Makoto Tanaka strikes the enemy with his sword. He says "Gyu." Then a loud sound is heard, He walks forward between two huge monsters with open mouths. Makoto Tanaka says they are slow. He says he'll show you how to fight now. Then he performs a spinning kick on a large wooden object. Makoto Tanaka says humph. The next panel shows the drilling rig crashing into the ground. Two demons simultaneously strike the ground with a powerful blow from a huge club, causing destruction and scattering of stones. Makoto Tanaka says that he can't let them pass and informs that he will stop them here. He delivers a powerful kick that pierces the skeleton's skull. Makoto Tanaka kicks the ground, breaking it. Makoto Tanaka writes his name on the hilt of his sword. Makoto Tanaka walks forward through the crowd of monsters. Makoto Tanaka raises his sword. He says, "Phew," and says he didn't believe it at first, but it was live, and he thought ogres were incredibly dangerous, but it all worked out so easily for him. The man says, "Holy shit," he didn't even see the blow, and says, come on," even though he didn't notice anything. Makoto Tanaka says he's alone. He explains that strong men are inevitably attractive, and all the girls are now his. Makoto Tanaka explains that Yui looks at him as if she's in love, and admits that she looks at him too. He notes the coincidence that other girls are looking the same way. The monster laughs, preparing to attack, and he stands in front of him, ready to fight. The monster says he saw the strength and spirit of a true warrior who fears but doesn't run away. Makoto Tanaka says they will fight with all their might and says goodbye, preparing for battle. He explains that he figured that since he's put away his sword, his opponent has a chance, but in this stance, he'll have a loaded pistol pointed at his head. He explains that this is his own style of fencing, and now he just needs to pull the trigger and the battle is over. A demon appears on stage. Makoto Tanaka says the enemy was strong. Then he says the word, flash. He says that the opponent is so fast that he didn't even realize he was dead, and that he was just unlucky with his opponent. The monster says it's the fastest technique he knows and asks how fast it is. Makoto Tanaka explains that it was even faster this time and is surprised that he hasn't hit him seriously before. He explains that at least it looks that way and that his opponent was just unlucky. Makoto T. He asks if his interlocutor is okay. Then he takes a cigarette. Makoto Tanaka says that she thinks her name was Yui Hoshino and that she might be scared, noticing that she seems stunned and is a little red. Yui Hoshino explains that she bit her tongue and confirms that she's fine. Makoto Tanaka informs her that they can't stop here. The girl says it's fine. He stands silently nearby. The man says that a man and a young girl are in the same dungeon. What could possibly go wrong? They're currently featuring 18+ content that can't be shown on the platform. He asks Tanaka to be gentle with her, calling her his Yuchi and Tanaka. He explains that the first girl has been added to the harem, explaining. Makoto Tanaka says that she is certainly grateful to him now, but it is far from the feeling of love. He says that after they leave here, they will not see each other again. He suggests taking a short break. The girl agrees. Makoto Tanaka announces that they're currently healing their wounds, so he'll pause the stream briefly and then turn it back on. Makoto Tanaka explains that if he hadn't turned off the stream, they wouldn't have had a proper conversation, and that it was necessary. The girl says okay and asks Makoto Tanaka to sit down. He tells Hoshino that he will heal all her wounds if she tells him where it hurts. Hoshino thanks him for his help and apologizes. Makoto Tanaka says it's okay and natural to help your colleagues. The girl says that if he hadn't come, she would already be dead and will never forget his kindness, expressing gratitude. The girl says she shouldn't refuse and that her mother taught her that if someone helps her, she should pay double. The man explains that she's too bright for a gloomy man like him. Makoto Tanaka says he was once like that too, but now his mind and heart are pitch black. He says that hard work changes a person and hopes she never finds herself in such a situation. The girl explains that he's been in this business longer and is clearly older than her, and when he addresses her formally, it's a little strange, which makes her feel a little uncomfortable, and also says that bye. Makoto Tanaka says that they'll both be escaping the dungeon, so they really don't need these familiarities, and that it's a good idea to communicate as comrades. He says he'll do his best. He thanks her and asks Hoshino if she's in pain anywhere. Hoshino replies that her leg, which the ogre hit during the attack, hurts the most. He notices that her leg is swollen and looks painful, and then says that he'll fix it now. Makoto Tanaka explains that potions can be made from scrap materials while in the dungeon, and says he has more potions, so everything's fine. The girl apologizes, and Makoto Tanaka tells her not to apologize. The girl is surprised that it's a potion and calls it such a. The woman says it can be purchased for money, but it's expensive and some guilds only give them out. She explains that no one in the guild she was in gave out potions, so she made them herself. Makoto Tanaka says he spent enough time there that he had no problem finding materials, and explains that bringing materials with him was prohibited, but using them in the dungeon is fine. Makoto Tanaka says okay, that's it. The man thanks him. The girl says the wound healed so quickly. Makoto Tanaka tells her to try moving, and the girl says yes. She jumps and says it doesn't hurt at all. Makoto Tanaka says he's very happy about that, and the girl exclaims, "Wow!" The woman says it's a good thing the stream was turned off. Makoto Tanaka asks how the girl ended up alone in this place and explains that it's very dangerous to go to the middle levels alone. The girl replies, well, he explains that the danger level between the upper and middle levels is completely different, and while there shouldn't be ogres here, there are other monsters that would corner them. He says that overall it's still very dangerous here. Makoto Tanaka explains that if you fight the local monsters face to face, you can win, but if you fight on their terms, it will be very difficult as the local monsters are much smarter and won't just fight you head on. The girl informs that there will be a fragile girl here. He explains that if the girl dies, the number of viewers will be meaningless and asks why she's bothered by that number. The girl explains that for some reason, she was attacked by ogres. The girl explains that she comes from a single parent and poor family, so she needs to earn as much money as possible so that her younger brothers can go to school, and adds that she is still very young, so she will have time to gain popularity. Makoto Tanaka explains that while he's at university, he can't earn money in the dungeon, so he has to go there at night, and has almost no free time. He says it seems she had her own reasons, and now he doesn't even know what to say. He offers to join a guild, explaining that streamers can earn more, but in a guild there will be a stable salary. The girl says that without a higher education, it's impossible to get into a good guild these days. He says that with a high school education the salary is too meager, and Makoto Tanaka says that even here, society's flaws are evident. She explains that if you get hired by dubious companies, you won't be able to get hired by good ones, and that at least being a streamer allows you to work at your own pace. He explains that he didn't understand the whole situation and shouldn't have said all that, asking her to forgive him. The girl says there's no need to apologize. She's very happy and didn't think anyone would save her, and also notes that Makoto looked so confident. The girl says she was very impressed by the way Makoto Tanaka stood there, like a father figure she could rely on. The girl claims that Makoto Tanaka doesn't look old at all and reminds her of an older brother. Makoto Tanaka says he was joking. The girl apologizes and says she didn't mean to. The woman says thank God, and the man says that, if you think about it, their situations are very similar. The man explains that his parents were hospitalized due to magic poisoning, and he had to take a precarious job at a high school because it was the only way to earn money to pay his parents' medical bills. Makoto Tanaka says that if a fragile girl were in the same trouble, he'd want to help her. He explains that he can't replace her father, but he'll protect her until he gets her out of here, and he assures her she won't be harmed. The girl reacts with questioning surprise, and Makoto Tanaka. The girl says yes and thanks him very much. He says he doesn't understand what's wrong with her and why her face is as red as a tomato. Makoto Tanaka says it's time to resume the broadcast and he'll need to explain the current situation to them. He says what it is and announces that a couple has arrived. He explains that he saved a lonely girl who definitely fell in love, and now he is defiled by the girl. He explains that even though he is a guy, his heart started pounding, and that Makoto Tanaka says that he didn't turn off the broadcast, and at the same time says that it can't be, he definitely turned everything off. He says he's turning it off. The man calls him an idiot and asks how he could possibly have pressed the wrong button. Several voices say he missed the broadcast off button and simply turned off the camera that was nearby, and that he needs to learn how to press buttons and that they. Makoto Tanaka says he's sorry and apologizes. explaining that it seems they heard everything Hoshino. The girl says she didn't really hide it and thought it would be worse for them. He explains that he doesn't care what they think about it and wonders why she even thought that. The woman says she was completely sincere when she said this. Makoto Tanaka explains that it's strange. She seems to be frozen again, and says, "Oh." He reports that Amatsuki had a similar reaction. Makoto Tanaka says that next time they meet, it might be worth asking why she acted that way. He says Chapter 9 is called, "Follow Me." The girl thanks Makoto Tanaka for his help. Makoto Tanaka says there's no need for thanks. He didn't do anything wrong. The man announces he's starting a stream. He apologizes for the sudden interruption of the stream and announces that they are currently trying to escape the dungeon, returning to their predicament. Viewers comment on how they started the stream as if nothing had happened, expressing joy at their return and thanking him for not leaving them behind. Makoto Tanaka says that, as always, they only write vulgar things and asks what will happen next. He explains that the fastest way is to break through the ceiling, but Hoshino might not be able to keep up, so they'll have to walk, although it will take a long time. The girl asks how his legs are and whether he can run, to which he replies that he's perfectly fine. He explains that the lizard notices something and makes a sound, then suddenly jumps down. Makoto Tanaka and the girl run forward at full speed. He asks if the girl can keep up with him at such a speed. The girl replies that she can. Makoto Tanaka asks Hoshino if she's worked in groups before and explains that even if she hasn't joined a guild, she can still form a group to avoid danger. Hoshino explains that she's often been invited to collaborate, but she's usually invited to work with guys with scary eyes. He says that it is clear and asks if his eyes are scary. Makoto Tanaka explains that given the number of her fans, there are some nasty individuals among them, and it's entirely possible that someone might want to take her over, given that she appears to have ill intentions. Makoto Tanaka explains that such a sweet and beautiful girl always streams alone. So, the girl says that's all right. He asks for forgiveness and remarks that the girl's first friend is something of a mess. In the right panel, the girl says nothing of the sort and says she's very happy it's her first. In the top left panel, the man and girl are running together. In the bottom left panel, the man and girl continue running. The girl says, "Oh, her heart is pounding," she says. She's always dreamed of hearing that she's someone's first, and asks when this guy even has time. The man says it's clear he's her first, explains that she's too naive and needs to be protected, and says that the guy isn't a pro. Makoto Tanaka says everything is fine and that he made the audience laugh. The girl apologizes and explains that she didn't mean to say that and that such a sweet girl would never fall in love with him, and the audience definitely understands that. He says he hears people. The girl screams, "Ava Va!" in panic and asks what's going on. He and the girl enter the cave. Makoto Tanaka reports that he can't hear anything. The girl says she can't hear anything either. He says he can't believe it happened. He says everything will change now. Makoto Tanaka says they need to come here. The man says he didn't hear anything either, and he turned up the volume but couldn't pick up anything. He thought the drone's microphones were powerful, but their office plankton have hard hearing. He explains that he used software on his PC to turn the volume up to maximum. The girl tells him to go with her and explains that he won't be able to return home if they leave someone behind. He says it will be fine and he won't get in the way, and the girl asks him to do the same. Makoto Tanaka says that if he can't win, he'll die. Makoto Tanaka says he has no intention of giving up. He says he can't refuse when he's asked like that and asks her to run if it's dangerous. The girl replies that she understands and agrees to go. Makoto Tanaka asks her to follow him, and the girl agrees. Makoto Tanaka and the girl jump off the cliff. They continue moving over the rocks. He says that there's more to come and that we need to prepare, and the girl replies that she understands. The right panel depicts an ear. A hooded figure appears in the upper right corner, smiling, followed by a group of people and an armored warrior looking at a black sphere surrounded by flying hooded creatures. Makoto Tanaka says this is the second time today. Workaholic Sword Master turned streamer Chapter 9.2. Powered by Manga. Makoto Tanaka says it's time to work. He makes a sound of surprise. He screams in pain as he attacks two creatures. Three hooded monsters express surprise. Makoto Tanaka reports that there are troublesome monsters again. Two men with guns ask what's going on. He explains that labyrinth mages are monsters who wear robes to cover their black bodies. He explains that they use a staff and attack with magic. He explains that these monsters don't usually appear on floors like this, but it seems that because Makoto Tanaka reports that for a swordsman like him, a mage is a natural enemy, and it is difficult for a swordsman to counter someone who attacks from a long distance, and their actions are difficult to predict. He explains that it's crucial for a swordsman to clearly see his opponent's actions. He explains that a person's intentions can usually be predicted by the way their body moves, and it's the same with monsters. If you know their habits, even the slightest movement is enough to predict their actions. He tells. Makoto Tanaka reports that over the course of his career, he has acquired a variety of skills, including the ability to sense fluctuations in magical power. He reports that thanks to them, he has an effective way to fight magicians. In the top panel, the hooded creatures scream. In the middle panel, Makoto Tanaka attacks the hooded creatures using magical energy. In the bottom panel, the hooded creatures react to the attack with surprise. He says he can cut down his opponents before they can use magic. Makoto Tanaka explains that labyrinth mages have no body. They are just mist, and if you know their weakness, they will not be an opponent. He says that for him, mages are even easier opponents. He explains that any of them will die from heavy damage. He says that he doesn't even need magic. He thought the labyrinth mage was a problematic monster, but he can't handle a mage, so he decides to rub. Makoto Tanaka reports that he was once unable to do anything to the enemy, and their group had to run away with only their heels flashing. He says that something is moving in his pants, too, and that half the audience has changed their orientation. Makoto Tanaka says he's been getting aroused for a while now. He says he came to help and asks to be told what happened here. The man thanks him and starts to speak, but then pauses. The group is surprised and delighted to see that they are truly dealing with office plankton. Makoto Tanaka says everyone recognizes him now and asks what's wrong. The man apologizes for the disturbance and explains that it concerns a specific matter. He says it's clear. Makoto Tanaka reports that the five were originally from two different research teams, but were forced to join forces. He explains that they encountered unusual opponents for this floor, so they tried to escape, but the labyrinth mages surrounded them, preventing escape. The man reports that they were surrounded by mages and nearly returned home. He says he will clear a path and asks them to retreat. The man tries to object, but he explains that he understands everything. Makoto Tanaka says not to worry. The man remains silent with a questioning expression on his face. He says he can't stand the labyrinth mages and has learned to fight them. The man responds with surprise. Several people shout, asking where he got this item from. Makoto Tanaka says it's a special suit with pockets that can hold a lot of things. The man explains that such items can only be obtained deep in dungeons and notes that they're worth a fortune. Another man asks if items with pocket space are rare and clarifies. He tells them that inside the dungeon you can get items with unique effects, and he has a couple of these special items. The man explains that he didn't tell the judge about this, otherwise he would have taken them. Below, the man with the skull makes a sound. He looks at the group in. The man shouts, "Yeah," and releases a powerful stream of fire from his hands. A man in a cloak unleashes a powerful energy blast. The man and woman scream in terror. Makoto Tanaka runs quickly across the ruined ground. He speaks and attacks with a fireball over and over again. A man with an open mouth and a staff communicates the sound of a scream. The image shows a demon on fire screaming. The man tells them that if they don't leave now, they will die, and explains that there is no salvation in their world. The girl says she can't believe it and says they must try to survive. The man takes the suitcase and tells them they only have one chance. Makoto Tanaka says everything is fine. Two ghostly creatures make a sound. He says it's excellent and explains that the temperature there must have been several thousand degrees. So he's surprised the briefcase wasn't damaged. Then he hears someone complimenting his strike, calling the method interesting and saying they'll take note. In the top left, a group of enemies screams in pain. In the top right, an enemy screams. In the bottom right, Makoto Tanaka says, "Op," then jumps and says, "Hop," then lands and says, "Hoba." The right monster says P, the middle monster says PP, the left monster says Pi. Makoto Tanaka says we need to push forward, and confirms this with the word so. He then attacks the enemies who make a pi sound, and Makoto Tanaka reacts to this with an exclamation. He explains that it's a super strong Aegis business briefcase, capable of withstanding even the Dragontron's flames, and that the labyrinth mages won't be able to even scratch it. He says he's cleared the way and will hold off the enemies here, and asks the others to head for the exit. A group of people is seen in the background. The man thanks them and says they won't forget their kindness. Makoto Tanaka stands to the side and watches the people leave. He explains that the higher you go, the less concentrated the magical power in the air, meaning the monsters are weaker, so once they get higher, they'll be able to move on their own. Then he says that now they just need to stop the other mages from chasing the boys. Makoto Tanaka screams. Makoto Tanaka and the girl run in panic from an approaching cloaked creature with a staff. He says that it is a magician in a black robe, and is surprised that this monster appears not only on the deep floors, and also asks since when such dangerous creatures appear on the middle floors and what the Dungeon Management Bureau does, adding that even their swordsmen will not be able to. The girl says she allows it. The man shouts no. Makoto Tanaka runs across rocky terrain. He says that Yuichi showed up and did a great job, and that he didn't think she'd have enough strength to defeat the monster from the deep floor. The man announces that there will be no deaths on the stream. The guy explains that Heihei shouldn't offend Tanaka, since he's already done so much. Makoto Tanaka shouts from the road, trying to warn of approaching danger. The girl in the cap expresses surprise. Makoto Tanaka notices an approaching shadow with a weapon. The girl's gaze fixates on the clawed hand. Makoto Tanaka calls out to Hoshino, the girl in the cap. The girl says yes, the man says no, he says damn, he's in trouble. The text explains that this is a special magic from a mage in black. It's reported to be spatial magic. It's explained that it can teleport anyone to any location in the dungeon and quite often sends opponents even deeper into the dungeon. The girl says no. Makoto Tanaka tells her that she will soon find herself in the deepest levels, and that she is unlikely to return alive. He says, KHH. He runs forward sharply, causing an explosion and raising rocks. The hooded man reacts to what's happening with surprise. He notes that if he gets closer, the man will simply run away, and says that with a normal attack. The voice states that it will want to watch its spell work from a safe distance, and makes a PPPP sound. Makoto Tanaka says the other person was thinking one thing, and a squeezing sound is heard. He says that the interlocutor will not be able to escape from him. Makoto Tanaka reports that he struck with a speed that exceeded all possible limits, and his attack even created a shockwave that traveled further. Above, Makoto Tanaka explains that when he turned 20, he made a discovery. He reports that from that day on he began to try again and again. He explains that at some point he stopped seeing his sword and even stopped hearing the sound of the wind cutting through it. Makoto Tanaka says his sword can even cut through space itself, explaining that it's his own style of swordsmanship, a spatial slash. A hooded man with a staff shouts. He says so. The creature lets out a scream. The man announces that Zoom is happening and explains that this is exactly how it is. Makoto Tanaka says he's continuing to stream from the Nishishinjuku Rock Dungeon and is currently somewhere in its depths. He explains that there's a very high concentration of magical power here, and Hoshino isn't used to it, so she could easily be poisoned by it. Various characters are surprised that he decided to start the stream so calmly and are happy that Yuichi and I are also there and alive. The girl explains. Makoto Tanaka explains that even if they just take a break, it won't improve Hoshino's health, and explains that before, when he went too deep, he would barely crawl along the ground, thinking he was going to die, and that normal medicine couldn't cure that. Makoto Tanaka reports that the magic stove converts magical power into heat and, when used in a dungeon, requires no fuel due to the magical power in the air. Furthermore, the flame doesn't consume oxygen, so it can be used even in confined spaces, making it ideal for dungeon cooking. Makoto Tanaka says he can handle it and doesn't need to push himself. The girl says she wants to help too and If it's not too difficult, she can handle it. Makoto Tanaka addresses the girl named Tanaka. He asks the girl if she can cut it into pieces. The girl replies that of course she can. The girl screams in horror. "What is this?" The girl says it's a plum mushroom and asks if she's seen one before, then denies it and asks what kind of mushroom it is. Makoto Tanaka explains that this mushroom is very good at separating magical power into its components, and if eaten in the right amount, it will alleviate the symptoms of magical poisoning. He explains that he had neither the money nor the time for proper food, so he tried a lot of things in the dungeons, and when he ate the mushroom, he felt the poisoning begin to pass. The girl listens silently. The girl says she understands and will cut up the vegetables. Makoto Tanaka says the vegetables don't look very good, but they taste good, and asks if she has any doubts. The girl explains that many vegetables help absorb magical power and reduce its absorption, and eating them will make you feel better. The girl says she's very grateful, laughs, and expresses her appreciation. The man says he's never been so scared to see potential hot pot ingredients and explains that this is some new hellish level of hot pot. Makoto Tanaka says he used to eat nostalgic food often, and that by constantly eating local food, he increased his tolerance to magical power, suggesting that it could be useful to others. The girl says she cut herself, to which Makoto Tanaka tells her to throw it inside. He says that he will even add meat. The girl asks if it is meat. Makoto Tanaka explains that the meat of the underground boar is a local monster. It's very rich in meat, and if cooked properly, it's truly delicious. He explains that other people have never tried it, but assures us it's a true delicacy. The girl says, "Wow." But she's already at her wit's end and asks him to hold on, trusting in their office plankton. He says, "By the way, it's best never to eat that glowing thing, as it contains a lot of magical power." Makoto Tanaka says that if you've already developed immunity, there's nothing to worry about and you can crunch on it, and also announces that it looks like it's ready. Makoto Tanaka adds salt, which can be found in the dungeon. Makoto Tanaka thinks no one will even put it in their mouth. He announces that a special soup to combat magical power is ready and lists the ingredients: plum mushroom, screaming carrot, dungeon boar, and Milna's cap. Makoto Tanaka says he's offering to try it. The girl replies that it's fine. The girl tries the food and first winces at the spiciness, then looks tense, and then surprised. He says she's brave and is surprised that the girl actually ate it. Makoto Tanaka is pleased to hear the food is delicious. Yui says it's delicious. He's surprised and thinks that if Yui says so, it must be delicious. He says it was his first time cooking for someone else and was a little nervous, and explains that to feel better, he needs to eat at least one serving. The girl reports feeling warmth spreading through her body and feeling better, adding that it's really delicious and she's hungry. The woman thanks him for the food. Makoto Tanaka asks how he's feeling and reports that he's feeling much better. He says her complexion has returned to normal. He'll clean everything up now, and suggests she rest, adding that he'll help too. The girl replies that there's no need and asks her to just sit there. Then she thanks him and says she understands. The woman says that magical power is very important for awakened ones, and says that she was worried that the soup might also harm her because her magical power would become too low, but she seems to be feeling fine. Makoto Tanaka explains that the book contained more magical power than he thought, and if she could withstand that much, it means she has a high tolerance. He explains that if she trains, she will become a great researcher. Then Makoto Tanaka asks who Hoshino learned to fight from. The man. The girl reports that she didn't study with anyone and even went underground with other researchers only a couple of times. Makoto Tanaka asks what happened and why the girl stopped working with the group. The girl explains that it was a group with both boys and girls, but with Makoto's arrival, the relationships in the group became tense, and one of the girls said that with his arrival, everything turned upside down, which made her angry, and he says it seems like she didn't even fully understand what happened. He explains that any guy would like such a nice girl, so the girls didn't like her, and it's good that she left them. Makoto Tanaka says the chat got it all. He explains that he can imagine any guy would like Hoshino, and any girl would be jealous of her, but knowing her, he's sure she's a very innocent girl and wouldn't even think of it as a joke. Makoto Tanaka explains that Hoshino He says that he is an adult now and must warn her so that she does not get hurt again. The girl turns to Hoshino and says, "Listen." Makoto Tanaka says that men are the kind of creatures that easily fall in love as soon as they are shown kindness, especially if it is a sweet girl like Hoshino, and it instantly hits the heart. The girl says it's cute. Makoto Tanaka says that Hoshino is a cuter girl than anyone else, and if they went to the same school, he'd definitely fall in love. Hoshino asks if he thinks she's cute. Makoto Tanaka replies that it's obvious. He notices that she's blushing again and is curious. He tells Hoshino that he's always loved her, and Hoshino replies, "Ah." He asks if the girl who's screaming "ha" is okay. He explains that this office plankton has suffered too much damage, has low self-esteem, but isn't shy about praising others, and the girl says she's fine, but is breathing heavily, and asks if they'll really start dating at this rate, considering they only just met today. Makoto Tanaka reports that the chat room has become agitated again, but he dismisses them as meaningless jokes. The girl asks if he will fall in love with her. He silently looks forward. The girl says "awawawa" and explains that she's a fan, but gives her blessing. She says that Tanaka needs to prove he's a man and says that Yui is so cute. Makoto Tanaka thinks he won't refuse her confession, but someone explains. He says that Hoshino says funny things and if anyone else was here, they might get it all wrong. The girl says she's sorry. Makoto Tanaka says he really did it and asks why he's so stupid, curses him and calls him insensitive, saying he did warn her. He says to be careful. He also says that he almost lost his heart. Makoto Tanaka says it's time to fix the situation. The girl says Hoshino even scares her and explains that she'll get back to the topic, reminding him that Hoshino said no one taught her how to fight. The girl asks if she has talent and he says that she has talent, it needs to be used so that it is not wasted and that, in his opinion, she has much more talent than he does, but her current skills are no good and she needs to train. The woman says to try hitting her with a sword first, and the girl replies that she can't attack her. The girl says everything is fine and asks them to trust her, then says she trusts them. The man explains that he doesn't think anything terrible will happen and doesn't think she'll even hit him, and also notes that she's serious. The girl says she understands. Makoto Tanaka announces that he's attacking. The girl is surprised and says, "Huh." Makoto Tanaka turns sharply to her. The girl tells him he needs to strengthen his core, to which she asks what a core is. He explains that Hoshino has power in his body, but he can't control it yet, adding that when Hoshino swings his sword, he doesn't put any weight into his strikes. Makoto Tanaka says the body should be an extension of the sword. The girl says she needs to go whoosh when attacking and whoosh when attacking. Makoto Tanaka explains that this is just starting advice, then says it's clear, but nothing's clear. He says that in the past he worked as an instructor for the awakened, but now his stance has become much better. The girl asks if that's how it is, and he confirms that yes, that's exactly it. Makoto Tanaka says it was hard to explain things when no one understood him, but Hoshino somehow understands him without words. Then Makoto Tanaka wonders if he's gotten better at teaching. The girl says the punches have gotten stronger. He says that's great, now he needs to work with his legs and shoulders. Makoto Tanaka explains that the sword is the whole body, not just the arm, and asks her to imagine the force flowing through her spine. He also says that her legs should move in a rhythm of ha, then bam, done, ha, swinging the sword. The girl imitates the movements, saying, he says, ooh. The girl says, eh. The girl says it's great and is surprised it actually worked. Makoto Tanaka explains that there are still some errors and inaccuracies, but that they'll all improve with practice, and soon she'll be able to use her full talent. The man says yes, and the man, with a disgruntled expression, demands that Plankton take responsibility, while he explains that a great sword can be used not only as a sword, but also as a shield or to redirect enemy blows, and with practice the defense will also improve. The girl listens. Makoto Tanaka says they'll move on now, because if he stays in such a cramped space for too long, he'll despair. The man addresses Makoto Tanaka by name. The girl asks if he will continue to tell her different things and says that she is very grateful to him. Makoto Tanaka says that if he is satisfied with the person he is talking to, he won't mind giving him a couple more lessons. The girl says she is glad and thanks. Makoto Tanaka says she's serious about becoming stronger. He thinks Yuichi is too cute and is surprised he hasn't figured it out yet, assuming he traded his feelings for his skills. Then Makoto Tanaka explains that girls in anime usually gather around such guys.